Chronicles 4, Chapter 31, 4 of Pentacles. Uncle again, asked Bruno. I'm not your uncle, barked again. I'm busy. Carina had what you call an eureka moment, and she thinks that the man who attacked Kane might be the limo driver, said Bruno. The limo driver, asked Ken, looking at the cluttered mess on his wall. It was a collection of documents and photos connected by strings. Whenever we phone a big party, Eugenia saw the habit of calling a limousine. The driver hears and sees everyone having fun while never being invited to the party, mused Bruno. Do you think she hires the same driver? Asked Ken. There's only one way to find out, said Bruno, and if anything, we'll lose nothing by giving the driver a background check, and maybe we should check to see if he has a bullet hole. The first place we checked was the hospital, said Ken. Maybe the perp was able to treat his own wounds because he has rudimentary medical knowledge, suggested Bruno. That is a possibility, said Ken, looking at the notice board, and I might as well follow this clue. Bruno hung up, and Ken called Michael to ask him about the limo driver. Is it important? Asked Michael. Why are you sighing? Are you drunk? Asked Ken. I'm hanging up, said Michael. Michael, yelled Ken. Wah, said Michael, and he added, Don't bite it tickles. Don't bite what? Asked Ken, concerned. I'm talking to my dog, lied Michael. Are you in the office? Asked Ken. Yes, lied Michael. Why is your dog in your office? Asked Ken, poking holes into Michael's lies. Ken heard the sound of a car honking. Are you driving? No, I'm on my lunch break, and I'm not the one on trial here, barked Michael, getting defensive. And he added, Oh, God, yes, that's it. Ken waited for Michael to finish whatever the hell he was doing. And based on how he was panting, Ken guessed that Michael was currently engaging in infidelity with God knows who. It was a wonder how Anise tolerated his cheating ways. Ken fancied that it was too expensive for them to divorce, or maybe they had gotten too used to living together. Ken shook his head, and he was getting sidetracked. Whatever Michael did with his secretaries wasn't his business. Are you done? Asked Ken. Yes, just about, said Michael. Ken heard the barking of a dog in front, and he asked, What did you do to your dog, Coco? Nothing, God. Who do you take me for? Said Michael, offended by the very idea. Fuck me, barked Ken. You wish, laughed Michael. Can you just get your head out of the gutter for a minute, barked Ken. Can you? Asked Michael, giggling. It's the driver, barked Ken. What about the driver? Asked Michael, still not getting it. The perp, the killer, the guy who attacked Kane. It's your limo driver, repeated Ken. How can you be certain? Asked Michael. Call it a hunch. A hunch by the name of Carina, said Ken. Just check your driver's arm and see if they show signs of scratches or bullet holes. Michael ordered the driver to stop, and he realized when he got a good look at the man, he was too short and portly to be the guy, and he always used the same limo driving company, though not always the same driver. I need to contact your boss, said Michael. The driver reluctantly gave Michael the information, and after asking about, he got the name of the chauffeur that usually worked the night shift. He was a youth that was driving his way through medical school. His name was Eric Brandt, white male, age 24. An arrest was made. He was brought over for questioning. Officer Lola recognized his voice, and other than his voice, there was no physical evidence linking him to the scene of the crime. Everything had been washed away by the sea, including the blood from the wound in his elbow. Eric knew this, while being interrogated, he would smile in spite of himself. Ken too would smile from time to time. Had Eric not answered the 911 call, the police wouldn't have his voice. His voice placed him at the scene of the crime. Would this be enough to convict him? Only time would tell. However, Uncle Ken was feeling optimistic. A cast of Eric's fangs were made to compare it to the bite mark on Kane's neck. They were an exact match to the one on his neck. This might not be enough, but Eng felt optimistic, and he brought Ken over to have him identify the perp. Ken recognized the voice, but not much else. Lola entered the interrogation room with Thibault, and she asked the same questions as Ken, but while holding the cat. Much to her surprise, Thibault was indifferent to Eric's presence, and from time to time he would meow the name Jeremy. Lola returned Ken his cat, and she said, I think Thibault is missing his owner. I suppose I could let Thibault see Jeremy for a few minutes, said Kane, not desiring to release ownership of the cat he had technically stolen. You know this isn't right, Kane. Thibault saved your life. The least you can do to repay him is by giving him the one thing he wants in the world, insisted Lola. Kate nervously petted Thibault, and he didn't want to let go of the cat. And he took Thibault home with him, and when he tried to walk the cat, Thibault refused to budge from his spot. And when he tried to feed him, Thibault refused to eat the food that was laid out before him, and instead Thibault went to the yard to hunt for his own food. King couldn't help but marvel at the intelligence of this cat, and with just his actions, Thibault was showing King that he had no intentions of becoming his pet. And when it came time to sleep, Thibault started meowing at the top of his lungs, "Jeremy, Jeremy!" The cat screamed like that for hours, with nobody sleeping in the household. Kane had no other choice but to return Thibault to his rightful owner. And the moment that Jeremy opened the front door, he screamed with glee when Thibault jumped into his arms, and he closed the door before Kane had a chance to change his mind. "Mean!" meowed Thibault. "Oh, for the love of God," said Jeremy, rolling his eyes. "Jeremy," meowed Thibault. "That's better," said Jeremy before going to bed with his cat. Everything was finally well in his world. The following morning, Jeremy went to walk Eugenia's dogs just like he did every morning. He took the same route as always, even if that route would sometimes take him out of view of the surveillance cameras in the neighborhood. He lay down on the sand to rest for half an hour with the dogs and his cat. Other than walking Eugenia's dogs, he had 3 other poodles he looked after, and his dog walking business was growing. And while he was dozing off, Thibault wandered away, and when he awoke, Thibault had a little present. It was a piece of black fabric. The fabric was partially stained with blood, and considering that he was close to the scene of the crime, Jeremy fancied that Thibault had found something belonging to Eric. He called Officer Lola to inform her that Thibault had found something, and the piece of cloth was collected for evidence. The cloth had Eric's blood, but more importantly, it had a single hair strand belonging to Kane. This was the vital clue they needed to connect the criminal to the victim, and she drove over to the spot with her forensic team, and Thibault was given a different cloth with the scent of the criminal. Thibault followed the scent trail, and since he was a cat, he was able to follow the scent from the branches of the sea grapes, and along the way he found more and more trace evidence that Eric had left behind while running away from the cops. Eric had counted on the sea to mask his past from the ground. However, he didn't count on a cat following his trail from above the tree branches. Eric was going to go to jail for a long time, all because he underestimated the intelligence of a cat named Thibault. Alright, that's the final chapter of the Lover's Pentacle 4. Bye bye and God bless.